That's Esports Weekly. Gonna want to make sure you check that out. Monday mornings, 10 a.m. for all kinds of great videos just like that. Finch here, Graham, Hinduman, Halfield joining me as well.
Yeah, that's me.
You're on that show, right? Monday mornings?
Yeah. I just do picks and bands, and generally I'm right.
It's less right than Ryan, but still right for the most part.
Over the course of the weeks, I'm relatively okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know about the show.
Well, what happens is that you write your script, and then you don't want it to look like so boring, so you have to make a couple bad picks just to throw everybody off the trail, right?
Yeah, you're smart.
Oh, that sounded sarcastic, but, I'll take the compliment either way.
I was giving you a compliment.
I'll take it. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at the standings as well, see how all the teams are shaking up here in North America as well as Europe. United with that last victory able to make it up to the top, and Spacestation want to be able to close that gap, so they're the ones playing here in this next set. Spacestation versus Trifecta. If they want to make it up there to that 7-2 mark and tie with them, they need this win.
And if you look at how many games have been played so far, obviously United have 9 under their belt so far. Only 1 game remaining next week. Spacestation have this game today. That will leave them with only 1 game next week too. It's looking like it's Spacestation and United how it is now, unless Trifecta can cause some problems. Because Splice technically could still make it.
Yeah, that important number is 7, right? That's the number that they can't reach because they have played 7 games already and only have 3 wins for Trifecta. So if they can keep Spacestation at 6, they can at least get 6 wins themselves and have the same number in that win column.
There you go, math. That's what it's about.
Just
Americans do learn it.
That's right. We learn a whole lot of things, like how we saved you all in the war, that we're just better, all kinds of things.
Okay.
What is that? Did we not? Are you saying that's not true?
No, I'm just not going to argue with you.
Yeah, how could you? We're just correct. But let's talk a little bit about Spacestation, the North American heroes. They're the ones that we're going to be taking a look at here first in this next upcoming set. Aquarius in particular have been looking real good.
Heroes versus fan favorites, bit of a difference. I would call them definitely fan favorites. These guys have been around.
Did I say they were the North American heroes?
Yeah,
did I say
you
that?
did. You said heroes. That's why I was like, I don't know about that, but definitely.
No, you're right to check me there.
I mean, JeffHindla's Canadian anyway, so that doesn't help with any stretch of the imagination calling him American. But this team,
no meme is too stale, right?
This team since the start of the year has always been one to look out for, and they've got the name power, they've got the experience, they've got the class. Aquarius came into his own too. Great team, but not the greatest of splits in all fairness. I think they've kind of taken the foot off the gas a little bit more so this year. Our teams have just slowly worked out how to deal with them.
That just shows how good they've been, though, right?
Yeah.
They've got 6 wins, and we're thinking that they've kind of slowed up a little bit because by their standard, they really kind of have slowed down a little bit. And as much as Aquarius has stepped up, it's kind of felt like there's been some other areas where maybe they weren't quite as strong as they were before. BaRRaCCuDDa starting to look a little bit better, but I mean, does Baskin still have that same dominance that he had in spring? I'm not so sure.
It's funny, I think the whole story of Baskin is like he's probably the best player in the world. He's been up for debate about being the best mid laner in the world too. But then again, you can have bad days, you can have bad weeks.
Absolutely.
You can go into a slump and you can never turn around and go, oh, well, what about this set? I mean, he may turn around this set and just explode and go, yep, that's why we still call him the best in the world. It can happen.
And to be fair, Baskin doesn't have to go 15-0 and 15 every game to be an excellent player by any means. It's just that he did it for so long, we're kind of starting to expect it from the man. So we all know Baskin certainly still looking strong.
Earlier on this week as well, we saw that Nox play.
That's right, yeah.
You can't forget. I mean, that was just this week as well, so it's not like he's out of the woods at all. He predicted where someone would dash on Toth and kill him.
Baskin's just really, really good at the games. That's still true. You're exactly right. We just have such insanely high standards for the guy that sometimes maybe he can't always meet them. But their opponents across the way gonna be Trifecta here this game. They went through some change-ups. They've got Paul back in the mid lane. Zapman's back now after Met Yankee was there for a little while. And they've kind of been looking good sometimes, shaky some others.
Yeah, it seems when they moved Met Yankee to the Hunter position, there seems to be some issues with communication or something, and that's why they brought Zapman back to try and shore things up again on this roster. And it seems to have done okay for them. It's still going to be a learning split, and you've got to take that into account. Whenever a roster change happens, you look at any roster, it takes a while for the team to really synergize and get to the same level as the other teams that haven't made those changes.
And for a while there, Scary D over here in the solo lane, you might have considered Aquarius an easy matchup, but no longer can that be considered the case, especially here in Season 5, where Aquarius has just become one of the guys for the Space Station roster that could be a win condition in his own right. Scary D very much going to have his work cut out for him lining up against Aquarius.
The funny thing is Space Station just win condition is any of the players. Like,
at this point, isn't it? Yeah.
But Trifecta, I mean, there's a lot of things to look at in this team. Mask has off and on games for me. I think Mask is always one of the biggest talking points on Trifecta in terms of what happens next.
Yes.
Does he transition well into the? Does he do well in the early game? Does he transition out into mid? Does he even appear?
And you also have to ask about Paul. The jungle mid is going to be so important for them. Yep. Can Paul consistently perform at the high level we've seen from him? Sometimes he gets off to a great start and looks unstoppable, and sometimes he kind of flounders.
And it's one of those things when you make a roster change like a mid laner who's so prevalent and so important in Season 5 that you could have your jungler focus on getting that synergy with your mid laner, but it's going to cost you games probably and experience as through that split. But into the fall split, it should work out well. Or if you mask, you pay attention to the solo and your duo lane instead, but then that synergy with your mid's still not going to be there by the next split.
And that's when you're going to need it without any kind of doubt there in the fall. But again, we got to focus on what's right in front of us here. And Spacestation Gaming have already selected the Chernobog pick for themselves because Sylvanas was banned away along with the Chang'e to perhaps guarantee they get the Artemis or the Chernobog, one of those two.
No, that's just a target ban towards the young JeffHindla. That's all that is. Jeff has played that consistently in that lane. He likes the lane pressure that it gives BaRRaCCuDDa in the early stages, allows him to rotate around and cause a lot of problems. So take it away from Jeff and go, all right, Jeff, what's next on your list, especially when Athena's not available?
Apparently it's Terra, as that has been selected, and perhaps recognizing that's the plan from Trifecta, they grab this Terra for themselves right now, and the Mercury that they can hand over to andinster. So some really high value picks at Space Station to be able to grab. A little bit surprised. Sometimes Jeff goes over to Geb when he can't get this Athena Sylvanas, but Terra very, very strong right now, so he'll go there.
But Spacestation Gaming have always wanted pressure in the duo lane. They've always been about pressure, and having the Terra there does help them out a little bit. Obviously, level 1, not the greatest in the world, but level 2 onwards with a Chernobog, those two are going to have fantastic wave clear. Question is whether the Athena is in the jungle or the support role. It's up for debate a little bit right this second, because it can multitask.
Yeah, that can go to several different places. Taunt is strong just about wherever it is, it feels like, at this point. Such a strong Guardian that you can have at your disposal. As Serket and Giannis are banned away by Trifecta. They're taking an eye towards the mid and the jungle still, even with the Mercury already on the table.
Do you like Spacestation batting away the Hebo? Paul's one of his go-tos. He's not scared of running that hub in the jungle, in the mid lane. So take it away. Baskin doesn't have to deal with that one. So we'll see what happens next.
Does mean that the Hercules can come out for Trifecta. They've got a lot of their picks, right? Paul has really been leaning on this Raijin lately, especially when he can't have the Hobwa. This Hercules is a popular pick for Scary D, but Aphrodite coming in for Space Station.
Not sure if it's mid or solo. I mean, Aquarius has been playing a lot of Chang'e, and that's one of the reasons Trifecta ban it here. So does he go to the Afro here? Yep, it's got to be the Aphrodite. I'm pretty sure that's either Neith in the mid lane or the Chernobog in the mid lane. There could be either or.
Yeah, it could be Neith in the mid lane. She kind of feels like the most magey one, but also the ultimate so good from Duo, right? To have an impact everywhere and might as well just have the Chernobog, but then you can make the same case for the Chernobog ultimate. I guess you're right. There's equal case for either one being either way.
Is it actually a little bit safer for Chernobog to be in the mid lane? Same can be said for Neith to an extent, but Chernobog being in the mid lane means there's more wall areas to jump into to hide away from danger zones.
Right.
And with a Nemesis, for example, and the Athena, you get staying at the wall in the mid lane. The walls are a little bit closer to each other than that of the Duo.
A little bit surprised. You got Nemesis coming in for this last pick. She's kind of fallen out of favor recently, but now we're seeing a little bit more of her, at least this last week, I feel like, in response to the Jean Quiz sometimes, but that's not here. This is more, I guess, to try and slow down this Terra or maybe the Aphrodite and punish one of them.
Slow down the Mercury. I mean, Mercury's damage is all about mobility, so trying to shred that down a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of the Nemesis at the moment. I don't think it's in the right sort of position. With what Mask is going to do this game, it clearly is that Nemesis for that mid-game stage where Nemesis starts to really feel big and strong and start to look to burst down some of these targets quickly before they can even answer back.
And that's right. I mean, Nemesis lost some of the slice and dice damage, doesn't have quite the same early clears, quite the same confirmed damage he had before, but can still have an impact when they're able to stack up those slows. You're seeing both these drafts here, Graham. I got to ask you, which one are you leaning towards here?
I don't know, because I don't like either of them too much. I'm not a big fan of the Nemesis from Trifecta, and the Aphrodite is always a suspect. It always will be. Healers can get focused down. If it goes off, it's going to be crazy. If it doesn't, it's going to be embarrassing.
We've got to watch out. Can that Aphrodite have a good game? That's going to be the question here. We'll get over the casters to find out the answer.
Thanks a lot, friends. Tom and Ryan here bringing you the business for this one. Spacestation Gaming. These guys are certainly doing well this split.
They are, and it's been exciting to watch them and also watch Trifecta's sort of rise. Tom, I just wanted to let you know, we kind of had a rough ending there to the desk, and I wanted to get us off on the right foot, per se. So I brought you a kind of a peace offering.
Nope.
A good luck charm, if you will. You know rabbit's feet?
Yep.
This is kind of like that, but it's a barefoot.
No, it's not. You're
wearing
shoes. You're not barefoot.
No, you see this right here? This is a barefoot. It used to belong to a bear that once lived on this earth, but was then ruthlessly taken from us by one.
Let us know in the Mixer chat who you think is going to win the game, whether it's Trifecta, Space Station Gaming, or anybody else, and we shall see what's going on there. And definitely interested in how this one goes.
No respect for the bear. That's messed up, man. Hold on. Excuse me. Please talk while I get this ready.
I don't know what you're talking about. BaRRaCCuDDa on the new hunter. Should be very interesting to watch Chernobog do his thing. Very curious to see if he's going to be successful. Lacking the team fight ultimate, but of course does have a pseudo second life akin to Athena and other characters that are able to rejoin the conversation. But I think the biggest focal point of this game, for me at least, is andinster. I think the Mercury is just so oppressive. And if he's able to get 2 items online, I think you just lose.
And I think that you get the opportunity to play aggressively now as andinster, because the main way that Mask kills people is by slowing them.
Yep.
Andinster can press 2 and become slow immune. It also gives him more attack speed and basically everything he wants. So this is a tough matchup for Mask against andinster's Mercury specifically. But I agree with you. That's where this has got to start for Spacestation, because you know Mask is going to be spending a lot of time in that solo lane, and pretty surprised that we don't see Aquarius go for sprint at level 1 as the relic. A lot of solo laners kind of spending time without teleport these days. Deathwalker's been really against going teleport for a while now. Chang'e's only able to get away without teleport because of her bunny passive, but at the same time, I still feel like Aquarius may be regretting not going sprint in this game.
Well, for me, I think it's about what happens at level 2 teleport, right? I want to see Aquarius upgrade this teleport early. I think teleport is a crutch, and I just don't like it. There are metas, there are players, and there are matchups that require that crutch. Okay. Baskin putting Paul on crutches, killing him with a backflip. That's just unnecessary.
That was a great call, because nurses will put you on crutches sometimes because you need them. That was slick there. Baskin just showing off that he's been working on the Neith, and that's just understanding of the amount of damage that he's going to do in that spot. Whereas Paul doesn't really respect the amount of damage that Baskin is going to do. And a bit of a panic beads there from Paul. Beads wasn't going to save him from anything. Just he could have Thunder Crashed away from the root as it was. You don't need a beads in order to do that, and ends up dying for first blood and using beads at the same time.
Only level 2. Does he have Thunder Crash? Did you see that? Okay, so cooldown maybe?
No.
Paul's a better player. I'm just trying to figure out, like...
No, he didn't have Thunder Crash. I thought he did. Okay, so he was beadsing to try and get away. I thought I heard it start to go off in that spot. Maybe that's why.
I like how he's holding his third point as well. If he gets jumped, he's going to go and Thunder Crash away. But if not, by now he probably put it in his first ability just to be able to clear the wave.
Percussive Storm, definitely the way to go if you're trying to clear. Baskin gets to back and use that first blood bounty to get himself to boots 2 instead of trying to rush down that Transcendence. Either one can be viable. I think that getting your CDR online early with the Transcendence is really appetizing as a Neith, but using it to back before the first few respawns of mid camps and get it some extra mobility and damage is certainly not a bad idea.
NeiruMah going to be rooted up here. No big deal. 2v1 on the right-hand side, though. Aquarius gets pushed out of the way, stunned out, no body blocks, and Aquarius sits pretty at 80%. No big deal, no big deal.
And that's for now. But once Scary and Mask at level 5, there's potential for that to be a problem. And andinster recognizing that Mask was in solo as his XP harpies are coming up, gets to steal those away. And that means that Baskin gets to solo down his own side's XP camp, which is really just as big of a deal.
Andy taking the aggressive pathing inside. Gonna be safe. Ultimate, yeah, it's not happening. It's just used to kind of press buttons here in the middle lane. Baskin on the Neith. Very interesting, because Neith is absolutely not what I call a hyper carry, or carry is even arguable, right? I mean, this character just is more about the ultimate and the setup when you pick her these days, but watching that first blood, I think there is a lot of potential for Baskin to surprise Trifecta with how much damage he's going to be able to put out.
I don't classify Neith as a late game carry or a late game hyper carry really, but I think that she really can serve as an early game hyper carry almost. Where there are times where a Neith gets fed in the mid lane and you walk around and you just spirit arrow someone for 50% of their health, auto backflip, World Weaver kills them. And you can carry your team by affecting the map all over the place.
Yeah, just like that. I mean, and simple things like that are really important. And Baskin's not going to get a kill for that. It's not going to wind up on the scoreboard in any way, shape, or form outside of some player damage that's relatively low. But what allows that to happen right there is andinster invades that back Harpy camp without any sweat. Next time we'll see that on a red buff or a speed buff, and that'll be a little bit more impactful. But just having Baskin as your guardian angel here in the mid lane, you're right. I like the way you said that. Carry the game by affecting other points on the map. You're absolutely right. That's what Baskin is going to look to do. And Andy giving a Mercury even more wiggle room, that's ridiculous.
It is, but I kind of like Neith paired with the aggressive solo laner for that reason. You know, I want to see Neith paired with Thors and Alquongs in the jungle, ones that can really punish solo laners very heavily in the early game, that you can use that aggressiveness to your advantage. Baskin, a lot of times, is going to be using his ultimate, as we just saw it, for peel at this sort of, and with this sort of team composition for Spacestation. I don't think that's exactly where Neith is best served. I think she's better as a setup, as an additional setup for ganks in solo lanes primarily, but also in duo lanes. As far as peel goes, by the time you need World Weaver, sometimes just the travel time will take it too long to get there.
I look at it, it was a console team that did it for me, honestly. They paired Neith with Alquang. And from that moment on, that was your team.
That was us.
That was your team.
I used to run Neith all the time.
And so the Neith and the Alquang combination, I've always looked towards that. NeiruMah gets rooted, but we'll be... Oh, until Andy comes out of nowhere! Jeff actually will get credit for the kill, but Andy and Baskin off the huge assist. And that right there is kind of what I was talking about with your team would select like a very hard, heavy, all I bring is damage type jungler. And then your job in the middle lane as the Neith is just to, I'm going to make sure you can catch up.
Right. I mean, it's, hey, I'm going to gank solo. I'm going to let your ultimate hit them so that they get into execute range to make sure that I get that execute guaranteed. And we would do that literally as soon as I would be calling my Neith ult from 20 seconds out, so that then my jungler could go over to the solo lane and set up. Because it is guaranteed. As long as your solo laner plays it right and your jungler plays it right, and you have even okay timing on when you want to do it, whenever the red buff is up usually on the left-hand side. You want to do it when their speed buff is down primarily, so you know the jungler is less likely to be on the right-hand side of the map. But yeah, as long as your timing is right, that's basically free kills.
I've really liked it. So, I mean, we saw it introduced with the Alquang, and then I've taken it a step further, and I've seen teams paired up with characters like Mercury, characters like Bakasura, characters like Freya, who their job is to sort of chase you down. And sometimes, and the way you deal with that is by escaping them. And the Neith just makes it so you can't escape them. You are inevitably going to be chased down. And Baskin basically, Andy's chasing somebody, and Baskin makes sure he catches up to them. I love that interaction with Neith mid, and that's the one that I particularly like Neith into.
Baskin gets ulted right away. Paul up into that Tycho drums. Baskin trying to juke around, gets the backflip cooldown, but just kind of goes straight into the wall, and he gets punished for being very far forward. Andinster was there with that Sonic Boom to try and help out, but just wasn't quite enough. I don't know what Mask saw, but clearly got some information that backflip was down on that top left side, and that was the go time.
Well, that's also the other side of Neith, is just how punishable she is, how absolutely devastating it can be to just be Neith. I mean, all you have is the backflip, and I don't think I've ever called backflip an escape in my professional career. It's a movement ability, but I don't know if it's an escape.
It's predictable and slow, which are two things that are easy ways to get yourself killed at the professional level. Even at the mid-tier ranked level, you'll see players be able to really punish things like Neith backflip consistently, and that is where her shortcomings are. But that's why you just put yourself in spots where you're playing aggressive most of the time. And yeah, it kind of, obviously not as much as a character like Zeus, but you are there to fight until someone dies most of the time. And the way I always felt about Neith is, if I'm backflipping, it's to either get a kill or to reposition very early in team fights. If I'm using it because I'm in trouble, I'm already dead.
Yeah, you're just already toasted. Yeah, you've got to kind of see the damage before it happens. Jeff and NeiruMah kind of hanging out in this side jungle rather than in the lane. They're still taking the farm from their hunters, but they're not really being visible here. It's an interesting strategy, just kind of hanging out in the wings. Is it valuable, or is it kind of gamesmanship?
I mean, why not both? It doesn't really give them a whole lot, but it also doesn't give the enemy team guaranteed information on cooldowns being down or where exactly they are. I mean, there's plenty of wards, but...
Ooh. Neith, ready for battle. And right in the middle lane, the ultimate Andy just pairs up with it. Paul somehow gets on out of there. Very, very, very quick reaction, because that that right there is the combination that we're expecting. Neith hidden, ultimate out of nowhere, Mercury and BaRRaCCuDDa just destroy you after the Neith ultimate. That's we've seen the win con of the deck. We've got it now.
That is that's the idea. And what I was gonna say, going back to what kind of characters you pick Neith with, you pick Neith with characters. As a pro player, you understand about the damage window that each character has in a given composition, and usually how they'll work together in pairs of 2 and mostly pairs of 3, or a group of 3 in any sort of situation. And you put yourself in positions where that won't punish you. You know, if I'm against Thor Isis, I understand that I can be this many units away, or else I will take about this much damage.
Yes.
And I can, if I'm taking that much damage, sure, that's fine by me if I'm putting myself there. But what Neith does is completely changes that equation, because not only does it add an extra person into the equation that you usually aren't considering, especially as a solo laner, but it ups the amount of time that you're getting hit by the characters that are there. And that's why it's characters with finite burst damage like Alquang that I think Neith works best with, because especially in the early game, Alquang can only do X damage to you with his cooldowns. Mercury kind of fits that same bill, and I think that's why I like this comp so much.
Ooh, JeffHindla uses the ultimate. Spacestation Gaming kind of thought there was going to be a bigger fight there, but nope, no smoke.
And that's where, and what I said was why I like this comp so much. That's why I like the mid jungle so much between these two. And why I also don't really like it with Aphrodite in the solo lane, because even with Baskin's damage added on to what Andy and Aquarius can bring in that solo lane, good luck killing Scary D, even at this point of the game. Especially with andinster going for more crit and not the stone-cutting sword, going for the Hasten Katana, which is a low-power item and more about the utility and movement speed and the kind of hard-to-lock-down nature that it brings to your character. I don't think that you're utilizing a big reason why Neith is really, really strong at the competitive level.
I think that you've got two separate mentalities here, and usually I don't like that, but I think this is instead a composition that will sort of change, sort of like a tier 5 skin, if you will, right? So in the beginning, Baskin shoots somebody while hidden, and Andy and BaRRaCCuDDa jump on them out of nowhere. Andy from down the block with the ultimate, and BaRRaCCuDDa from wherever the hell he is, because he's got an ultimate as well, and they kill you like that. And then late game, Aquarius links up to Andy and just punches you down the old-fashioned way, and Neith can do whatever the hell she wants. I think that's really where it's going to go, where the Mercury just winds up being the hard carry. The Mercury getting hit right now by the ultimate from Mask, but yeah, I didn't commit there because I didn't think they were going to commit.
No, and it cost Trifecta a couple ultimates. Trifecta seemed really invested in going for this Athena Nemesis ult combo that is going on right now. It hasn't really worked out yet. It almost did in the mid lane, but Baskin had a really nice slow with the backflip to prevent it from happening. But committing both in that spot isn't always going to work out, and when it doesn't, like it happened there, then you're down 2 ultimates instead of just 1.
And it's this is a classic combo. I think we've seen this a number of times. Gold Fury started here early, and Andinster does have a ton of damage. Aquarius making the rotation earlier than Scary, but Trifecta able to push Spacestation off. Oh, wow, there's Andinster out of nowhere, and Zapman, I didn't even have time to get excited. It just happened.
That was perfect. That Spacestation going, okay, who's going to split off from the group? And then we just all in commit on that one. Really good job.
There's a backflip. Baskin setting up for the burst damage. We'll go into that a little bit later. Scary D, rooted forever. That's also a big conversation we'll have to bring up. Spacestation Gaming right now on the Gold Fury, 25%. Paul here has the ultimate. Going to be dashing away because of BaRRa's SSG. Take care of business. 36,000 gold, 3,000 above the opposition.
And I love that Spacestation isn't afraid to pull that Gold Fury, because this, even though you have an Aphrodite, that's where this composition, this point in the game is where this composition really wants to fight you because of what they do in these jungle fights. We saw it perfectly on display there. That is how you draw up this comp and how they're going to team fight at this point in the game. It's BaRRaCCuDDa goes up with the Living Nightmare and just sees what happens. Let's see Trifecta's response. Everyone goes right, except for Zap. He goes left. Okay, let's Neith ult, Merc ult, and I'll land on Zap. And we get that kill very, very easily. I don't think Petrify even came out from Zapman. Then we'll back it up, go towards the Gold Fury. Then let's, Scary's the only one to commit. We'll just blow him up with Terra ultimate, and andinster will go to town. Now we get a 5-on-3, and good luck fighting us in that spot. And we've got sustain. On top of that. So Trifecta need to be wary of the way that Spacestation used that last fight and do a better job of staying grouped in the next one.
Yeah, you can see andinster going into the crit strike. He's going to be that hard carry in the late game. So really, really, really excited to see that one come out. Because like I said, I expect as the late game comes through, Aquarius and andinster are going to be on that leash together. And 10% additional damage for Andy. Very, very big deal. Just going to be nuts. Oh, yeah. Back off also does a ton of damage. This is the original iteration or the original build of the Aphrodite that brought her back into the conversation. Was tank, and then a Rod of Asclepius and a Soul Reaver. And that'll be a ton of damage. So very, very interesting part of what's going on for SSG on the right side of the map. So I normally don't like it when your composition doesn't agree.
Sure.
But I think I just see two very distinct, separate stages of this game, and the composition will be transformative. That's really what I'm looking at. And if all works according to plan, I think it'll be very successul.
Sure, you're trying to flip. Like at one point in the game, you're doing this thing, and then we'll flip to this, and it'll end up working out. But we'll have to wait and see if that actually ends up happening. Sometimes those sorts of game plans that we'll do this, then we'll do that. You get stuck in one gear.
Exactly.
The other team interrupts you during that. They interact with you. It's tough at times, but it certainly is a possibility here for Space Station. The one thing I do want to note for Aquarius, you were talking about his build, this Lotus Crown does make sense for him if he wants to prioritize keeping one person alive, like, say, a Mercury in the late game, which, of course, he will. But he has to be wary of when he's utilizing that Lotus Crown in regards to Mask's ultimate, because if Mask ults while the Lotus Crown proc is happening, you're basically gifting him a little bit of extra protection, and his ultimate is nullifying that of the Lotus Crown. But on the other hand, if Aquarius is very cognizant of when that Divine Judgment comes out, you can use the Lotus Crown passive as a you didn't just get Nemesis ulted sort of button, because not only are you healing up the HP they lost, but also giving them back some of the protections.
Yeah, you're just able to supplement the lost, lost prots there. Certainly a nice look for the Aquarius to look for a little bit later. 4-1. Read the kills. JeffHindla on the right side looking to. I don't really know what the Terra's going to do here. Well, he's going to do something with the Mercury and the Neith. 3.5-man gank on a scary D, but here's a little bit of help from his friends. Andy with the major look from a distance.
And now BaRRa's here as well. NeiruMah served up, trying to get through, and somehow splits the uprights with that dash. Another crit, by the way, with Major Look, I think, just connected. Andy making it work with the rage.
Baskin up here. Now Mask trying to do it, but here comes the rest of the squad. Andy on top finds another kill. 3 kills without a death. The Aegis is good to deal with the mage. Here comes help from the support. One shot will do it. Paul takes care of Andy thanks to the creep.
Baskin get a backflip to get himself closer. Aegis saves Paul's life from the unravel, so Paul escapes and brings down andinster. But look at this grouping from Space Station. And again, this is about playing their composition where they can. They get the tier 2 tower on the right side. Zapman won't be able to get this tier 2 on left. He just doesn't have the itemization quite yet or the levels. And no Fire Giant pull. A little bit surprising.
Yeah.
If andinster ends up surviving there, that's certainly an early Fire Giant for Space Station.
With Baskin, well, I mean, they do have the Chernobog. Why didn't we see the Fire Giant pull? There really isn't a reason in my mind.
Scary doesn't have teleport. Neil's ultimate is down. Paul did survive, but he had to go back to base, and Zap's on the left-hand side. I'm a little surprised as well that we don't see it. I mean, Baskin was a little bit low, but you have the Aphrodite there. Oh, there was a lot of golden hand. There was a lot of golden hand.
Well, I mean, usually, because we have the luxury of seeing everything.
Right.
Usually, when we scratch our heads, it's because of a lack of information. But they had all the information.
They did.
Just Space Station playing it very, very careful, which is a bit curious, but I guess at the end of the day, not incorrect. So, going to continue on looking forward. That crit is just going to get even more devastating from Andy, by the way, right now building into what's likely a Deathbringer. But we'll keep an eye on that for sure. Flip up. There's Andy through the middle. BaRRaCCuDDa comes down from the sky. Mask in trouble. Dashes away. The ultimate from Scary D. A little bit less impactful. NeiruMah on the low end of the HP spectrum. In a very, very lackluster fight.
Oh, but Baskin is just steps up a little bit too far forward. Maybe he got taunted in by that Tycho drums, but maybe just too aggressive. Andinster very low. Percussive Storm will finish him off, and now Aquarius is going to fall next. A disaster for Space Station.
Trifecta with a great team fight, shutting down 3 members of the enemy team. They trail by 4K and are going to shorten that a little bit by starting up the Gold Fury. BaRRaCCuDDa gets drowned.
Man, what a horrible fight for Space Station. I mean,
Fire Giant.
Again, I don't... either Baskin just steps way too far forward, and the rest of the team wasn't on the same page as him. I know he got caught by Petrify slow, and that's what kind of messed him up a little bit past that, but it was really just... that is a narrow corridor to fight in against Trifecta's team composition, who excels in fighting in those sorts of narrow corridors. Raiju's going to bounce around. The boulder's going to do work. Petrify is great in that spot. It's tough to stop a fight from going in Trifecta's favor in that little corridor, and this is what I really, really appreciate about Trifecta, that even when their games weren't going the way that they wanted to, they play their composition better than almost anyone in the entire league, North America or Europe. And what I mean by that is they'll draft 5 early game gods. They'll draft Uller, Double Hunter, whatever. We're winning by 25 minutes or we're losing this game. And they'll be down 4K gold at 20-something minutes and go, okay, we're pulling Fire Giant. And they know we're pulling Fire Giant, but this is our only possible out to winning this game. And even if it's 2%, they'll commit to that. And I really, really appreciate the way that they think about that the way their team composition is meant to be played. And that's why you see them not give up on that fight. It's Paul extending it a little bit longer with Tycho drums. Instead of just dumping everything, he kind of staggers it, CCs some people. Zapman throws out a late Petrify in that team fight because he knows that even though that isn't the best Petrify he's going to get in the entire world, that's their best fight area anyways. And you have to take it even if it's a risk, and that time the risk pays off for Trifecta.
I love the meeting of the minds here for Trifecta. Zapman has always generally had that mentality. I always bring up how they always tried to beat the meta going back historically with Zapman teams. Most notably, the Khepri meta was the most famous. Zapman and NeiruMah have this deeper level thinking about the game, and so does Mask. And I think Paul came in just as a willing applicant.
Yeah.
He was known as the pub stomper in the minor league, and I think he really wanted to prove people wrong. Hold on, because Andy is going to make Trifecta hold on. Big initiation coming out from the jungler. Zapman in trouble, wiggles away, has help from the Athena, goes back in. Ooh, too soon, too much. BaRRaCCuDDa takes down the Z-Man. Now Baskin goes down because of Mask.
Oh, but Andy and Paul duke it out in the jungle, and Paul wins that 1v1. Aquarius here doing what he can.
Got him.
But he can't save BaRRa. It's a double kill for Mask.
There's another play. NeiruMah slowly getting better, but Aquarius flipped up, heals. See you later. 5 kills without a death. Make that 6 as Paul gets the Doubleune and the deicide. Tier 2 tower to Trifecta, and they're tumbling towards the Phoenix.
The mid-Phoenix. There's no T there for you, but I appreciate the effort. That was a really weird team fight where Paul's inexperience for me really shows in that team fight because he chases a Mercury out, uses everything to try and get it, but somehow Trifecta win the rest of that engagement, and they might be able to just end.
They're going to, with the damage they have on the Paul. I mean, this is Raijin. He's one of the highest damaging characters in the game. Scaredy has an ultimate as well. There it is. All right.
Yeah, they got it.
That's game.
Wow.
Trifecta. And I mean, you went on a long harangue about Trifecta playing the composition and playing the game that comes to them. They won this game, Trifecta, because they understood how their composition plays. They had confidence in it. They trusted their teammates. This was straight up brains over brawn, and that's interesting to say about Trifecta.
And I love the way that team fight goes in the middle lane. Like I said, Paul chases out Mercury, and it ends up working out. I don't know if that's necessarily the correct play, but it works, so,
sure.
You know, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But it's less about what Trifecta did with their team comp there, but more about understanding what Space Stations lacked. A true mage, an AoE damage dealer. So what did they do? I mean, they became a death ball in that middle lane. Everyone's right on top of one another, and usually that gets heavily punished. Lovebirds are going to punish you for that? I don't think so with that build from Aquarius. Is more, tank-oriented. And then BaRRa, I mean, he can't hit a priority target. Everyone's just too clumped up. in Trifecta, what started up being a losing fight ends up being a deicide and a game ender for them. That was really, really awesome.
Yeah, Trifecta. This was I really, really enjoyed this one. Who's the MVP? And flat out, I mean, I don't have an answer for you. This was a clean game from Trifecta as a whole. Yeah. I want to call it the shot caller. Honestly.
Yeah, seriously. I think Paul had a good game on the Raijin. I think he's probably worthy of it. I think Scary controlled those team fights incredibly well. How many times was it 1 or 2 members just getting away from the team fight? The Scary then pulls back in, and that leads to a Gold Fury Fire Giant combo in the first fight, the game ender in the second.
Really, really, really fun to watch. Honestly, just a great game of Smite.
Yeah.
Really excited we got a chance to watch that one. Game 2 on the way, but before that, let's talk to the desk.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Aggro, Finch, and Hindu here to break down that game. And it's not often that 2 fights this early in a game can really determine it. But, I mean, it really, truly was. That fight around the Gold Fury, they win it so handily, they get FG. Yep. And then that second fight there in mid lane where they're able to push to win.
The first fight was really, really good from Trifecta just because, as Aggro was saying, a murder ball. That's all that happened. They just grouped up and slammed down the throat of Spacestation Gaming. Get the Gold Fury, but then recognize very, very quickly that they still have time to get the Fire Giant. That on its own was putting them in inner control of the game. The difference afterwards, though, is that Spacestation wanted to defend that Tier 2 tower. You could see Andy line up for the ultimate. As soon as the Sonic Boom comes through, the way the fight unfolds after that, the Fire Giant buff comes into play because the gold differential isn't that big.
No.
And those individual fights just didn't work out. Andy versus Paul was a very important fight in that jungle that we didn't get to see too much of because of the major action. But that was a real key. If Paul dies there, they can't end.
Especially because Zapman dies he's the first death of that engagement.
Yep.
You're thinking there's no way they can push in without him, but the Fire Giant buff really helps paper that over, and they definitely give a lot of credit to Paul, who was able to get that kill into andinster. In fact, he's the one that's selected as the MVP by Mixer Chat. And I think that they're correct because you're right. That fight between him and Andy is so important. Not only does he get that kill, but he comes back over and helps out the rest of the fight. And this was big, too. Paul surviving on the back end of this fight off Space Station's pick. They might be able to keep pushing were it not for that. So Paul really does come up big for them here.
And fair play to the fans at home who are watching this because Paul didn't get off to a very good start. He got soloed at the beginning of the game by Baskin.
Trifecta did not get off to a very good start.
No, they didn't. And I'm really surprised Space Station lost as quickly as they did.
Yes.
You can see that a couple of mistakes very quickly, one after the other, can really be capitalized on. It's not that there's a real snowball effect in Smite anymore.
No.
It's just that if you make terrible mistakes time and time again, good teams will punish you heavily. And that was the heaviest you could be punished.
That can't even be a snowball because they never rolled it down the hill. It just ended. You know what I'm saying? It was
right.
So incredibly fast that they were able to win that game. And that's the difference between a deicide and even 1 or 2 members being able to stay up. I mean, yes, JeffHindla was up for the Fire Giant steal, but I mean, Terra can't go in and defend.
No.
It was just, they got the right targets, and then the second one, they got all the targets.